And you know
But
what?
if there's something about when I come sitting here, I just want to like just
Yeah.
let go.
It's okay with me. You know, listen, I want you to be healthy. You know, if that means well, you know what? Maybe what we'll do is we'll get boxing gloves and just, or actually,
Yeah.
Well, that's why I go to personal training. It's like,
Exactly.
just beat me.
Yeah.
Make me
Yeah, because when you deal with clients, you've got to be fine, no matter what.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I've made that mistake of
Telling the truth.
of finding myself like I'll have a day where every call I'm getting on, and I'm doing small talk. My small talk is just complaining. And it's like, oh my god, why am I? That's horrible. I can't do that.
But you know what? If you're in business long enough, and the kind of business you're in,
Yeah.
it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's how you control it and compartmentalize it.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Hello.
Okay.
What do you got? Did you bring some goodies? I see some handwritten
Well,
notes.
I was scribbling in the car. Because I actually got here early, and I was like, where's my notes? And I just came from a listing appointment, and I got the listing, so.
Nice.
My MO when I walk in here.
So I have here, Mark, do you have set rates for loans, such as always charging a certain percentage for a specific type of loan? Like, commercial is one way, residential is something else.
Sure.
Patty, I know my house will sell right away, but I don't want to be stuck without a place to go. What should I do?
Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
Such a good question.
Are we all ready?
You want to start? You want to talk about?
I think it's like normalization, like a little bit of overview of the market. It's not that different than it was, but I can.
Because I got some
little
great stuff
perspective.
that'll dovetail with what
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
Just actually that doesn't. This is just a non-prime rebounds from crash to become a growth market. That's like my. But this is. Did you know that short supply is causing faster price appreciation?
Oh, really?
Really?
I don't know if you ever see the DS News. This
No.
is a Zillow report.
No.
This is kind of like,
Sounds
duh,
That'd be economics
And
101.
then
Yeah.
San Francisco, the case Schiller came out for last month, and San Francisco has dipped down to 8.5%. So we're going, we're now number 5
8.5% what?
year-over-year appreciation. So San Francisco is now no longer in the top 3 of, according to case Schiller, of year-over-year price appreciation. The most recent.
That's probably Bay Area because San Francisco actually went down $40,000 year over year. $40,000, but every one of them, every 9.
You know what? This is for March.
Yeah.
Because
that's
case Schiller is
too low
90
now.
days behind.
Right. That's
Yeah.
not good. I mean, it's not to say it's not good. I'm just going to say, but
It is Bay Area. It's the
Yeah.
metro. It's the SF Bay Area metro market. We
Yeah.
have no idea which neighborhoods, but let's talk about let's have a where we talk about what's happening on the on the front lines because
yeah.
because I've had similar conversations this past couple of weeks. A friend of mine who does real estate in the South Bay said that a lot of listings are sitting right now.
Yeah.
So
It's and I'm calling it normalization.
normalization.
Because really on a scale of 1 to 10, before we were at a 12, now we're at a 9. That's good market.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
You know, I don't want it to
Yeah, let's
seem
talk
like
about that.
we're talking about it's getting bad,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
things
yeah.
are still really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right.
Normalization is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And away we go.
Okay.
Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing on Talk 910. I'm your host, Edward Brown. I'm proud to have as my co-host Mark Hahn from Pacific Private Money, one of California's fastest growing mortgage investment firms, and Patti Cohen of Pacific Union International. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during the show. Those vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, located about 1 hour northeast of San Francisco, and those vacations are free. The only request is a $100 cleaning fee to cover the housekeeping expenses. People have asked us what kind of show we have. It's like a bunch of guys sitting around a bar having drinks without the drinks.
Yeah.
Not just guys, but gals here.
Yes.
So.
Men and women.
Men and women.
And then, by the way, the weather's getting really nice. I'm looking forward to going back up and with you and visiting
Yeah,
Lighthouse.
absolutely.
Lighthouse Resort and Marina, right on the Delta. Just beautiful this time of year. It's starting to ease into summer here, right?
It's, excellent.
Yes.
And let's see, our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out. Today's trivia theme is just various trivia. Patty, let's start with you. What you got for us?
Well, I believe that if we look at a big picture perspective on real estate, residential real estate, what's going on? I think the word would be normalization. Because it's a really...
I like that
Right?
description.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good market, and for me to suggest things are slowing down, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, we were like a hyper 12, So now we're at 9. I mean, year over year, May to May, all of the Bay Area counties went up. Some of the East Bay counties went up as much as 20%. San Francisco actually went down $40,000. That's a rounding error, let's call it.
Yeah. So it may have been flat, and that's that's year over year May. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's very much of a good market, and we're coming into June, July, August, which is a very slow time, and the general public thinks that's our busiest time. It's not. It's slow. But in general, we didn't have much of a market in the spring. Part of the issue is not that things aren't selling, that we have a shortage of inventory, and we have had that since 4 or 5 years. But at the same time, it still has slowed down slightly, like things are taking a little bit longer to sell. And we're seeing that mostly in the luxury market, like over 4 million. And we're seeing it more in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. The East Bay is still very, very strong. Notably a little bit more in the North Bay, whether it be Sonoma or Napa or Marin. But at the same time, we're still not in what I would consider a neutral market, and absolutely not in a buyer's market. We're still in a seller's market. And normalization is what we need, because everyone listening can remember what happened in 2008, blah, blah, blah. So we're not going there. We're just normalizing, and we need to be normal, because prices have gone up so much in the last 4 years.
Well, and that's a great point to make, Patti, because as a private money lender, I'm hearing a lot of anxiety from both sides of my client base. I have my borrowers, my real estate investors, flippers who come and borrow money from us, and then of course I've got my private investor clients. And on both sides, there's a lot of anxiety in the market among certain people, wondering, hey, are we about to, are we at the crest? Are we about to dip? And really, what you're saying is there's no evidence that real estate market is going to crash or even correct at this point. It's slowing down, and I think that's something that we've all been waiting for. Now, you mentioned May over May. I like to track the Case-Shiller Index, which is a fairly lagging indicator. It's usually about 90 days behind, and their results for March showed that the San Francisco Bay Area, their price index showed that for the first time in several years, the San Francisco Bay Area is not in the top 3 markets in the United States for year-over-year price appreciation. Now, remember, this is March. This is when the real estate markets, for the most part, were still pretty hot. The top 3 markets in the United States right now: Portland, Seattle, and Denver. Still, west-ish coast properties, but San Francisco has now dropped to number 5 at an 8.5% year-over-year price appreciation, down from about 10.5%. And I know we've talked about on this show before. Wouldn't it be great if it just kind of managed to hover, around 4 to 5%, which I think is a much more sustainable level of price appreciation.
4 to 5% is actually high. I'll tell you where we are number 1. We were just named the top area for job growth in 2016.
Well, that should help spur even more the sales.
Right. So this could be an aberration. Maybe it's not. Maybe the 8.5 is not down from 10.5 is not necessarily a trend, because you just never know. I mean, it's just so hard to predict. And it's funny because I want to get back to that, Patti, but I pulled this off the wire, so to speak. And of course, we're talking about Bay Area real estate, not national real estate. But here's a national article released from Zillow that says short supply is causing faster price appreciation. So did any of us know that? So fewer homes for sale over the past year have driven prices up faster than expected, according to Zillow's latest real estate market report. Now, surprisingly, buyers looking for higher-end homes will have more options, because I guess those, it's not, as you said, the higher-end homes suddenly are not flying off the shelves as they were last year. Those looking to buy less expensive or entry-level homes will find an increasingly limited supply and rising prices. So again, this is a national report. So maybe the rest of the country is starting to catch up with what we've already been experiencing here in the Bay Area for several years. In fact, if anything, now we're talking about maybe that land rush is actually maybe cresting a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that we do have, meaning the entire industry, has continued low interest rates. Because I took a look back at 25 years ago, and the average price in the Bay Area was $350,000. 25 years ago is not that long ago, really, when you
No.
think about it.
Not for those of us sitting in
91
this
or
room.
something? Yeah.
I wonder what wages were back then.
Yeah, it was, yeah, true, good point, and it was in the 90s. So the other thing, and interest rates were 10.13%.
Yeah.
So we do have continued and sustained low interest rates, and that really helps the economy. We have low inventory. We have boomers that are not going anywhere. We have millennials not buying. But it's a healthy market. You know, we're at a 9 on the scale of 1 to 10, is my opinion.
Yeah, and Patty, you're a listing agent, and I'm a private money real estate lender, and so on my end, I'm hearing stories kind of anecdotally from my clients kind of in different markets in the Bay Area, and for example, I talked to someone whose market is the Silicon Valley area, San Jose, and he's saying that some of the homes aren't, they're not flying off the shelf like they used to. In fact, he invested in one property just recently that he planned to fix and flip, and now he's thinking he may not even get might not even make a profit on this particular flip because he may have bought it at the height of the market, but he's also talking about neighborhoods where the price per square foot has been approaching $2,000 a square foot, which is not a healthy or a sustainable. Now that's, when you talk about real estate bubbles, I think there are neighborhoods in the Bay Area where one could argue that due to its location and proximity to maybe high-tech firms have caused certain pockets to inflate beyond reasonableness, which again is not a credit bubble like we had back in 06 and 07 where everything was being priced in crazy areas. This is really just neighborhoods that are like say near Google or near
but at
near
least people
Microsoft.
can still afford to make the payments.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
important thing.
Well, yet the affordability index has gone up slightly, so that's telling you that jobs are still very strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is all good news. Everything we're talking about is good
it is good news, and I think it's good news when certain neighborhoods that have gotten just wacky and are selling for $2,000 a square foot. I mean, they coming back to earth a little bit is healthy for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to cut to a commercial break. Before we do, first of all, there is a bank that is still paying 1% on savings. That's right. And if you either email Edward at bestofinvesting.com or call our toll-free number of 888-912-1190, we will share which bank that is. Got to keep it secret on the air for now. All right, so here's our first trivia question. How is the year 2000 written in Roman numerals? All right, the first caller with the correct answer wins a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-912-1190 to answer that question. And don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing will be right back.
Why do you not give out the name of the bank? Just curious.
What's that?
Why do you not give out the name of the bank? Just curious.
The bank asked me not to.
Oh.
They said they didn't want to say it on the air, but secretly.
I gotcha, that's cool.
Yeah.
Dilute the brand. Whatever.
No, they just.
They don't want to give out too much
They
money.
don't want,
That's
they
right.
don't want to. They just want to advertise it right
That's
now.
kind of funny
way.
that they
Yeah.
wouldn't. Yeah, I don't.
I kind of get that.
Respect their wishes. You know?
Well, I mean, if they don't have enough loans going out and they're paying 1%, they're not going to get money. I mean, that's pretty simplistic, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right now they're still looking for deposits.
Yeah.
But it's weird. They just don't advertise it very strongly.
If I tell you, I have to kill you.
Then if too many people do it, then they'll have to take it off the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. I love that question. Should I sell right away? Because that is the number one question sellers have.
What's that?
Every buyer, how do you manage this? The house is going to sell on the way. We have nowhere to go.
Exactly.
Where are we going from here?
Yeah.
What else did you got there?
Not much. I mean,
Okay.
just kind of like what's going on in
Do
the
you have a
market.
deal of the week?
I lost a deal in the week.
Oh.
I could talk about.
Well, there is the one that Rick and I are working on that when the guy came originally, property's worth $1 million, so I lent 500, so it was decent,
Mhm.
and then he approved it. He had an offer, but the appraisal came in just a tad too low. He was in contract for $2,675. Appraisal came in at $2,500, so the buyer walked away. But the guy's got some other projects, so he needs a little bit of money for that. But the property, he actually has 2 appraisals, one for $2,400 and one for $2,500. So he needs $300, and he wants it as a second. So I'm going to be doing 300 behind my own 500, but still 800. I'll still be at about 40% more than value.
That's a great story. See,
What
I didn't have all the metrics up on top of my brain on that one.
I think it's in Oakland.
That's
I
really
don't-
strange.
Nice looking place.
I don't mind you
job.
sharing that deal of the week, and then we can just talk about, that cash out seconds are still possible.
I mean,
certain situations.
I didn't want to say that it was not mine per se. I mean,
Well, no, you don't. I mean, you don't have to say you were doing it, but you can talk about, when they, that
I was talking to one of your employees about
yeah,
it.
got you in Rick or
That's a
something.
good. That's a good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So where are we going from here?
You know what? I'll talk a little bit about this article about non-prime rebounds, which is basically another way of saying that non-bank financing has been on a growth curve.
Gotcha. Okay. Here we go. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt and Patti Cohen. Let's see here. Our first trivia question was, how is the year 2000 written in Roman numerals? Remember those? Remember when you were a kid doing that?
The C's and the X's and the V's.
WQ, no.
WQ. No. MM.
MM, awesome.
It was 1,000. I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, Mark, before we get into you, I wanted to mention something here about the Yosemite Gold Country Lodge, which has been called by guests a hidden gem and a beautiful place. A great place to, with down-home country charm. So check them out at ygclodge.com. You can also call them at 209-878-3400. In addition, each room has Wi-Fi, which is always kind of nice, and a fireplace. Take advantage of the spa too.
Sounds great. What's the name of it again?
It's called the Yosemite Gold Country Lodge.
Wow.
Okay, Mark, you got some good stuff.
Well, listeners to the last week's show, we talked about how the Republicans are thinking that they're going to make a run for repealing parts of Dodd-Frank, and we talked about how in fact, I think this week was the schedule. I don't know if I didn't actually see if it actually happened, because the article we talked about last week was that they were planning to have a press conference where they were announcing their plans to repeal Dodd-Frank, and we talked about the reasons why those of us in the mortgage business have, think that some of the new regulations that have gone into effect have maybe been overreaching and overstepped.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. So here's an article, though, that the title of it says, Non-Prime Rebounds from Crash to Become a Growth Market. Now, we all remember subprime loans, right?
Yeah.
So the subprime loan industry, which there really isn't, quote-unquote, a subprime loan industry today like there was prior to 2008. The subprime industry back then, which led to a lot of the problems, helped exacerbate some of the problems we had with the real estate business, of course, was, making loans. The accusation was that they were making loans to people who could afford them, and they were called subprime because these were people who didn't have the credit score, and they were charging higher rates, et cetera. And with a lot of mortgage lending, all of that kind of disappeared, but it came back in a different form, and this article is not calling it subprime, it's calling it non-prime, and what they're talking about is not so much loans to people with bad credit as much as it's just non-bank financing. And so this article talks about how non-prime lending has grown from 2008 to become a growth market. What they're really talking about is companies like Pacific Private Money who do alternative privately sourced funding. Companies like ours, most of the companies that are doing the type of loans we do are new since 2008, like Pacific Private Money. We launched in 2008. And so this particular company that was profiled is also recent, and they're kind of like they're serving that niche market that used to be served by subprime, but they're not really subprime. They're just alternative financing, and that is really an offshoot and an effect of Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank regulations that kind of put the squeeze on banks to make sure that they no longer participated in predatory lending practices and made sure people could afford the loans that they made to them. So they've really pulled back from lending, and so who's kind of coming to fill in the gap? But the private money guys, the hard money guys, the so-called non-prime. Now, at Pacific Private Money, we don't call ourselves non-prime lenders because I think that just brings up kind of a bad connotation that we're making loans to people with, bad credit or can't afford a bank loan, and that may be true, but it actually isn't the main kind of lending that those of us in this new non-prime lending world actually strive for. We actually exist to help people sometimes with great credit scores close quickly. We've talked about the types of loans that we do at Pacific Private Money, but it's just interesting that this article came out in the Wall Street Journal that it is, I guess, is newsworthy because I think a large percent of the population just really has no idea beyond bank financing where people would go for financing. And so I actually do believe that in the next couple of years, you're going to see more and more non-bank lenders offering, what they're calling non-prime at rates maybe less expensive than what we typically charge at Pacific Private Money, because again, we're not, people who borrow from us are not driven by rates. They're driven really by, can you get the deal done for us and quickly, quickly, easily, no pain, no fuss, no muss. That's kind of why we exist. We exist to help people out to execute a transaction that they couldn't otherwise get from the bank. But there's still people out there that are not bank financeable. They're not buying, fixing, and flipping. They want to buy a home. They make money. They have some money in the bank, and who's out there serving that? And so some of these, no longer called subprime but non-prime banks are starting to resurrect.
Now is maybe a good time to get into quote the deal of the week.
Yeah.
I was talking with one of your employees, and there was a loan that was done about a year ago. I think it was a 2-year loan, and the property was being purchased to go ahead and fix and flip. So the purchase price was $1 million. So the borrower came up with $500,000, and Mark lent $500,000. And the borrower improved the property very nicely, and the appraisal came in at between 2.4 and 2.5, and there was a buyer who was originally in for 2.675, but then when the appraisal came in only 2.4 to 2.5, fell out. Well, that kind of pushed Mark's borrower back a little bit, and he needs $300,000 because he's got some other projects working. So the idea is to lend this additional $300,000 in back of the same $500 lender first. So now it would be an $800,000 total loan, but the property's worth at least $2.4 million. So it's a pretty conservative loan, even though it's a second.
So to recap, basically, so we made a loan we went 50-50 with a guy who bought a property for $1 million. We only needed $500,000 from us, and he improved it so nicely that it's appraising for roughly $2.5 million. So our original loan of $500,000 is like 20% loan to value.
Yeah.
And so now he's looking for a second. And what's interesting in this market today of alternative finance lenders like Pacific Private Money, many of them won't do seconds under any circumstance.
And the bank won't do it because the property's being put up for sale.
Yeah.
The guy only needs the money for maybe 6 months.
So there's an example of someone who's got quite a bit of equity, and he only wanted $300,000, so he's not, trying to pull out every last little bit of equity, which often people will do. Though their first question is, how much of a loan to value will you go to on a cash out refinance? So this guy's just saying, hey, I've got a property that's got 2 appraisals here, one's for between 2.4 and 2.5. I need another $300,000 cash for a real estate project, and I'd like to do a second behind a $500,000 first.
Stripping the equity out.
Right, exactly. So again, so there's an example of, and again, we don't care how long he keeps the money, and we kind of know what he's using it for because he's a real estate investor, but we don't even really need to track the money because again, we feel extremely comfortable because the equity is there. So, again, there's an example of pulling equity out of property that you own, and it can be done relatively quickly. Notwithstanding all the new banking regulations and the Dodd-Frank banking regulations, we can still close a loan. With an example like that, this is not his primary residence. There's fewer regulations, fewer paperwork. We can do a loan like that in as little as 5 days, and we do that all the time. People will call us on a Friday. We usually stick around late in the afternoon because between 5 and 6, we get usually 4 or 5 phone calls from people saying, can you close on a deal for me by next Friday type of thing. And so again, that's why we exist to help people out in those situations. So for more information, give us a call at Pacific Private Money. First of all, if you just remember the name Pacific Private Money, Google it. We show up right at the top of the page. pacificprivatemoney.com, or call us at 415-883-2150 anytime. You can leave a message on our voicemail or call us during the day, and we'll just tell us what your situation is, and we'll tell you literally within minutes if we think we can help.
Okay, we're going to go to a very short break here. When we come back, we're going to get into email time, as well as I want to talk to you about some potential stuff that's going on in Congress that has to do with Puerto Rico bonds.
Interesting.
I don't know if you've heard this. Very interesting and potentially very scary at the same time. Before we do, I want to make a quick mention here for the Aqua Adventure Water Park. You guys like going to water slides and all that? Fun place. This one is in Fremont, and they're called the Aqua Adventure Water Park. Family water park. Sounds good. Get set to get wet. 4 acres of wet and wild attractions. For more information, check out their website, goaquaadventure.com. All right, so here's our second trivia question. What European capital celebrated its 2000th anniversary in 1951? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long time. 2000th anniversary in 1951. The first caller with the correct answer wins a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-912-1190 to answer that question. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Another thing is, speaking of non-prime, I was going to say, seller financing is becoming, I have sellers kind of offering I could do that, and I also have buyers requesting it.
Oh.
So that's a good discussion for us.
Yeah,
We'll talk
much.
about what a rate would be and pros and cons. And I can talk to
How much of a down payment are they putting down?
Well, I mean, I just had one where my seller, and I have to counsel him, but the property's listed at 2675. I think it's high. It just came out, and we have a buyer. I'm thrilled. And because I really said, we're going to take it, but we got to reduce it. That's so. Anyway, and it's up in Napa, and it's very, very unique. Well, a buyer said is interested already, and he wants solar financing. My client said 7%.
Yeah, but for what kind of down payment?
For a first with $700 down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty decent down payment.
Right.
For how long with 7% interest rate?
I don't know. I didn't get that far because I haven't co-listed
Because I
with
know
somebody in Napa.
there's some people who try to, you want to put 10% down, and then they're
No,
just
this is good. But I don't want to lose this buyer. I want to counsel him. What would you say is a realistic rate?
I mean, for a seller carryback, 7% for how long, you said?
I'm not sure. Say 4 or 5 years or something. I don't know. I don't know how long.
7%'s a pretty decent rate.
It
I don't
is.
know.
For a buyer, is it?
I'm
On a
not
first?
plugged into the.
Well, yeah, but I mean, for
first
700, because he's coming in with almost 30% down.
And
That's actually a pretty decent.
Well, our bridge loans are still 9.9.
Yeah,
so
I
again,
mean,
Well-
it's a decent deal all around,
so
really.
7%
And the
is
idiot
pretty
agent
darn
came
good.
back and said, that's 7 times market value. And these are Napa people. They're not that bright.
The interest rate?
Yeah, so I represent a seller, but she's dealing with my co-lister up in Napa, and the agent up there, Susie, comes back and says, 7%, that's ridiculous, that's 7 times
Then
what
why
it
don't they
should
get a
be.
bank loan?
Exactly, so I didn't get to
Well,
them
If they
yet.
get a bank loan, it's still going to be 3 or 4%.
Just some feedback. Just
Yeah.
let them know that we do purchase money bridge loans at 9.9%.
Right, I do know
all
that.
day long,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And so 10% for a hard money loan, they could go to like an Angel Oak, but they take too long to close, and they might get 7.9 or 6.9 Angel Oak. It's a California-based lender that does
different than
subprime.
Loan Oak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
different than
Yeah,
Loan
Okay.
Oak. It's Angel Oak.
And what's
And they're
realistic for
7
a
to
second?
8%.
Just so for my own knowledge, like if somebody's doing a
9
second,
to 11.
okay, wow. Because I've been negotiating some of them for like 4, 5, 6%.
On a second?
No, on a first,
So,
yeah. I mean, but just
Well,
trying to make
depends on
the
the
deal
deal.
done.
5% is a great rate for a first.
Yeah, but the thing is,
so
especially
there's
if
no
they're gonna-
reason why.
2675 on a property, if they're overpaying, or
I know.
so to speak,
I
or
think they're
paying top
overpaying.
dollar,
Yeah.
then a lower interest rate to get the deal done is great.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And they're saying 7%, that's ridiculous. So
Well,
I haven't
come
even
back.
gotten in there with them yet. I said, just get something on paper.
Well, again, I'd ask, why aren't they getting bank financing?
Yeah, well, I just said to my co-lister, hello, here's the good news. They're not pushing back on price.
Yeah,
Let's get it on paper. Write that up. That's not me.
Make an offer.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Oh my
They
God, I
may
had
end
this
up
turned off.
selling
I'm so
for at
sorry.
like 6% now.
I had
That's
this
not the
turned
worst
off.
thing in the world.
It's turned off, I thought. Okay, bye-bye. Okay. Yeah, so we can talk a little bit about seller financing.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here along with Mark Hahn and Patti. Second trivia question. What European capital celebrated its 2000th anniversary in 1951?
Gutenberg. I have no idea.
No. Paris.
Oh, Paris.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's 2,000 years old in 1951. All right, so let's see here. I wanted to mention really quickly, there was an article that I read said about the House is expected to take up the promesa, whatever that means, bill today with serious implications to every taxpayer in the country. This bill applies a form of Chapter 9 bankruptcy to the general obligation bonds of Puerto Rico that are guaranteed by the Commonwealth's Constitution. So it says that Article 6, Section 8 of Puerto Rico's Constitution explicitly provides that interest on the public debt and amortization thereof shall be paid first. And so this promesa ignores the Puerto Rican Constitution and breaks that promise. So the gist of this is many years ago, everyone thought Puerto Rico bonds were awesome because, they were California and federal tax free and they were, guaranteed. Well, now there's this, we'll just throw it into bankruptcy.
Maybe they're not guaranteed.
Yeah, or it may be delayed quite a bit. And so suddenly all these muni bonds that people think are very safe may not be.
Wow.
The guarantee is only as good as the guarantor, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's something to kind of be at least watchful of. And I guess there's going to a bill is going to go to the House. They're going to have to kind of figure out what to do with that. But
I think that's some interesting repercussions.
Yeah, so who knows? I mean, it could be also a bunch of lip service where
could be politically motivated to try to get something.
It could be.
Something, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it may be a much ado about nothing. Maybe they'll still pay, but it's just the fact that they even question. Sort of like, when money market funds broke the buck.
Yeah.
That was really scary.
Yeah.
Because everyone thought, these things are the safest thing in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into a quick email here. For Patti, it says, I know my house will sell right away, but I don't want to be stuck without a place to go. What do I do?
That is such a great question because every seller has that question, and I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
So when we're not talking about commercial real estate or an office building or, we're talking about somebody's home and where are we going to sleep tonight?
Yeah.
And, moving is a big deal. So you could have, ideally, we have a simultaneous close and there's no interruption and there's no overlap. That happens, believe it or not, a lot.
I wonder if these like extended stay places.
Oh, there are.
I've
I have a
stayed
client-
there for a week while my house wasn't ready yet.
I have a client there right now,
Yeah.
and he is giving out my card left and right. He really likes me, and he's just so excited. But he said there are so many people staying there right now,
I
and they're
bet.
really
It's
frustrated.
expensive too, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's bad actually. It's not as expensive as going to like a month-to-month place where you rent the furniture. Because a Larkspur Landing or a place like that, that's really expensive. First and last month. Blah, blah, blah.
So furnished
You go
apartments.
week to week.
Yeah, furnished apartments could be $4,000 to $5,000 a month for a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and if you go Airbnb, the monthly rates when we were looking, and this is in Marin County, but it's probably similar in San Francisco and elsewhere in the Bay Area, were $12,000 to $13,000 a month for
Easy.
a furnished home via Airbnb. They try to get you for like a daily rate times 30.
So
It's
extended
great.
stay is the way
It's
to go.
crazy.
So back to what do you do? So you could have a miraculous simultaneous close, which happens a lot, but it's a leap of faith to know that there's a lot of inventory in my house. It's going to sell right away, and I know exactly what I want, and am I going to get it or not? Because it's not like buying a new loaf of bread and trying this wheat bread. It's you're going to stick with that house, and it's going to be $2 million. So the other option is I've extended rent back. So generally, your house is going to sell in a week. We'll have a 30-day close, and maybe we can negotiate a 60-day rent back. So now you've bought 90 days.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of a leap of faith, but it typically works out. And we have to hope that the seller's able to do it, and the buyer will go for it.
If worst comes to worst, you do one of those storage rentals and move in with your furniture in the big.
Yeah, there's
big,
pods.
Big pods. Yeah.
Yeah,
there you
people
go.
put their stuff in pods and your extended stay, but it's really hard. Like kids and school and the whole thing. There is a bridge loan through Mark, perhaps, and a lot of people are going that route.
Yep.
Not everybody can afford it. Not everybody can qualify, I should say. So that's tough. Sometimes you can, take a I've heard of people doing non-occupied loans on their new home because the lender says, well, you still have this house, how can it be your primary residence?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to sell that. It doesn't matter. So there's a lot of options, but it's very tricky. And it usually does work out. We're doing a lot of rent backs is what it comes down to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume you advise people on this sort of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. How do people get a hold of you if they have questions?
And I'm happy to answer questions, whether it's just general information or not, because one day I might be able to help you and make some money, and maybe I won't. And either way is fine. So it's Patti Cohn, COHN, with Pacific Union International, cover all of Marin County and the Bay Area. I'm at 415-722-4842.
And your information is on the Best of Investing website if people want to go there too. Mark says, email comes in and says, do you have set rates for loans, such as always charging a certain percentage for a specific type of loan? I guess what this question is getting at is, if you have certain rates for residential versus commercial.
So
that's what I'm guessing.
at Pacific Private Money, we don't use a pricing grid per se, and the reason we don't is because we're a subjective lender. We lend on the story, and there's a bunch of variables in any loan request. There are the property variables, and there are the borrower variables. And we're like the bank from 50 years ago, where you'd walk in and tell the banker your story, and based on that and give them some information, they would gently decide whether to make you a loan or not. And that's kind of what where companies like Pacific Private Money have become that kind of like that neighborhood lender. We specialize in the Bay Area. Our capital comes from investors who live here in the Bay Area that make their money available to us to lend out. And most of the loans we do are right here in the Bay Area. We're a local lender, and again, we're one of the few lenders that don't lend off of your credit score and your loan application and your W-2. We don't banks make loans based on a set of numbers. You're nothing more than ones and zeros to a bank. You're an algorithm that you go through, and that's the truth. That's the way banking has gotten. You can't scale lending, and even the new fintech companies that are popping up all over San Francisco and the United States, they too are basing their lending decisions on algorithms. There's very few live people behind the scenes, so your story doesn't matter. You have to supply them with all the basic information. So when we get a call, the person will describe the situation to us. They'll describe their financial situation, their personal situation. So we look for things like, okay, well, what is your credit score? What does your balance sheet look like? How much cash do you have? And what is your real estate experience if they're making an investment? If they're just buying a residential property, a primary residence, we don't usually ask them what their real estate experience is because that's not relevant. They're buying a home to live in. On the real estate side, what condition the property is, what neighborhood is it in, and what loan to value do they need? Those are examples of variables for the property. So property variables, borrower variables. From that, we can pretty much determine what price we think we need to be at in terms of the note rate in order to entice our investors to green light that type of loan. But I will say, all of that being the case, we tend to lend within a fairly narrow band on the interest rate scale. Typically on the low end, it's about 9% or maybe 8.9. In certain circumstances, we've gone as low as 8.5 or 8.25. It just kind of depends. Maybe a super low LTV situation on a commercial property that I've got an investor who wouldn't mind making 8% on this money. On the high end, 11% is probably the highest we charge on a first, and again, that's normally for somebody who maybe only needs the money for a short period of time. He has really crappy credit. He's going to fix the house and flip it. So, 9 to 11%, with the vast majority probably falling right at 10. So now, how does that compare to other Bay Area lenders? We think we're pretty competitive. There are other private lenders that, if you look particularly attractive, they might, maybe they'll make you a slightly lower rate than we might quote. We try not to be the low price leader. We would rather be the service leader. So when you call us and tell us a scenario and we say we can do it, we absolutely mean that we're going to close for you. You can take that to the bank. If you need to go hard on a contract and put your deposit up and it's non-refundable and you're relying on us to close, we will absolutely close for you. We've never left anybody at the culture. And that can't be said by a vast number of other
And that's
private
that
lenders.
can be the most important thing.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we hear horror.
Non-refundable money?
We get a lot of
Yeah.
business from people after we hear horror stories of what they've been through with some other, unknown company who's not a member of the California Mortgage Association, who's not a member of the American Association of Private Lenders, who does not, does not have a staff of people who are there to and motivated to close your deal, and that's what we do with Pacific Private Money. So again, we're there to make whatever your situation is, whatever your transaction is, whatever you got to get done, we can make it happen. Assuming we like it, we greenlight it. I mean, we'll tell you very quickly if we can't do it. And if we tell you we can't do it, we'll try to give you a referral to someone in our database that we think might be able to do it. We do, have to, unfortunately, in our business, we have to say no a lot, and that's just kind of the nature of it. A lot of people call us for 100% financing, or maybe it's out of our lending area, or maybe it's a land or development project that we're really not set up to do. So we're not a one-size-fits-all shop. We don't try to be everything for all people who need non-bank alternative financing. But again, a phone call is free. The conversation is free. Everyone on our staff is friendly. We have great reviews. And so check us out at pacificprivatemoney.com. That's pacificprivatemoney.com.
And that service guarantee is really important, because I've had several situations recently where a buyer was told, yeah, we can get it done in a week. They remove contingencies. Within that week, the seller has an offer, or already existing on the table, and the seller has an offer for a lot more money, and they're left at the altar on that Friday.
Oh, yeah.
You get a 2-day notice to perform, and your deposit's gone, and they're taking a higher offer, and you're out.
Mark's got a lot of stories like
We
that.
hear
Yeah.
horror stories like that all the time, and it's just really great to be able to say we've never done that to anyone. Out of 1,200 loans over the last 8 years, we've got a great reputation.
Very good. Okay, we're going to cut to our last commercial break here. Who starred as Danny Ocean in the 1960 movie Ocean's 11?
I know that
You know that one.
Yes.
Okay, the first
Oh, you got one
caller
right,
with,
finally.
with the correct answer is going to win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. 888-912-1190. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Isn't that like the Rat Pack? Sinatra in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sinatra.
Yeah.
Frank.
Yeah.
Old
I
Blue
finally
Eyes.
know something.
That's good. I'm not sure I remember the version of him in that. That was a great. That was the Rat Pack too. Or several members of the Rat Pack were in that movie, weren't they? Was it, or was it just Sinatra as Danny Ocean? I don't remember who his co-stars were.
So
Or
Edward, when
Clooney
we
did
get
that
back
movie.
to this, we could talk a little bit about seller financing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening is, if you think about it, a lot of sellers are older. They
Yeah,
have a lot of
they-
equity, and they're asking that question. So, and they don't know what to say. Is it 5%? Is it 15%?
And what are they
And
gonna do?
is it, what are the pros and cons? And then for buyers too, a lot of buyers don't think they can qualify, but
Yeah.
So it's just coming up a lot. I haven't seen that in a long time on both sides,
Okay, that's very good.
especially in Napa for some reason. Anyway.
Because maybe it's one country.
Well, yeah, they're unique properties that are probably not even lendable.
Okay. You guys ready?
Ready.
About 13 minutes to go.
Oh wow, it's gonna be a nice long schedule.
There you go. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hahn and Patti. Third trivia question: who starred as Danny Ocean in the 1960 movie Ocean's 11?
We both knew that one.
Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
Old Blue Eyes.
And who was it for the most recent one?
Clooney.
Clooney.
George
Yeah.
Clooney. Okay, that wasn't part of the question, but I just thought I'd ask it anyway. So, Patti, you want to bring up a very interesting topic about seller financing.
Yeah, I mean, seller financing went away for a long time, and it's starting to come back. And I think the viewers out there are looking. Many are aging. They've got a lot of equity in their house. They're going to the next, retirement place or whatever. And we all know that a bank does not. Most banks don't even give 1%, although everyone knows of one.
That's true.
Yeah, so, sellers can make some money on doing seller financing. Is it 7%, 10%, 5%? Regardless of what it is, it's very, very important Because sellers are not lenders, and they need to understand, how much is the buyer putting down,
Exactly.
what's the buyer's credit worthiness, and it's very hard to, Mark can do it in a second, but it's very hard for the general public to really say, is this a good investment or not? But seller financing is some way where they could make more money. And for buyers, I'm hearing more and more buyers ask, will the seller carry? And for one reason or another, we're not sure why. It depends. I mean, they can't qualify for whatever reason, or the property isn't.
We have to be concerned too. I've had situations where people were saying, oh, you're asking, $1 million for your house. I'll pay you 1.2 million. But then it's like it's
If
a
you
little
carry back
squirrely.
something.
Yeah. And it's like, it may not be a scam, but you really got to be careful.
Yes.
So you're right about the seller financing. So when and there are a lot of people who are downsizing, they're selling their homes, and they may just have like a small mortgage, maybe a couple $100,000 on a million or multi-million-dollar property. And so the question is, for seller financing, what would be a fair rate? And as you said, there's a number of variables that go into that. But I'll tell you, I hear about seller financing all the time at like 5%, 4.5%, 5%. You mentioned a deal where there was where a seller offered seller financing at 7%. The buyer thought that was a little bit on the high side. So it's all relative. Now compare that to what we charge at Pacific Private Money for a short-term bridge loan to help people close on an acquisition of a residence and then pay us back when they as soon as they want to. We charge, oftentimes 9.9. It's called 10% for that.
It's called 10%.
Yeah, it's called 10%. So if hard money is 10%, maybe some hard money guys will charge 9. So for seller financing, really it's well, first of all, you got to beat hard money for seller financing. I think that's only right. So is 7% a good deal? One of my favorite real estate investor shows likes to ask, compared to what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
Compared
that's a
to,
really
is it a
good
good deal?
Well, here's one of the things you have to consider too, is that if you can, a lot of times some buyers are thinking, yeah, if I get the seller to carry back, I don't have to go through all the bank paperwork and maybe pay points and all this stuff. But the problem is there aren't too many sellers that are going to give you 30-year paper.
No.
And so
Good point.
after so many years, you're going to have to go get a regular bank loan anyway.
Well, that brings up a good point, because let me just tell you that Dodd-Frank, the regulations that have been imposed on banks also cover seller financing. And now, I am not an attorney, and I'm actually not, I don't have all of my information here, because I didn't know we were going to talk about seller financing, but this is something that if you're considering seller financing, there's two things you need to know. Number one, you probably want to, if you have access to a licensed real estate broker who writes loans, let them write the loan for you. Why? Because it takes away the possible claim of usury. Now, if you're only charging 5 or 6 or 7%, typically usury is not an issue. However, you are protected as a consumer if you have a loan written by a licensed California broker. And the reason for that is that seller financing now is covered under the new Dodd-Frank borrower protections. And there's a number of borrower protections out there. There's things like loan disclosures that are required, and APR calculations, and just writing the note in the deed of trust. I mean, do you want to do it on the back of a napkin, or risk that the title company actually has a current form, and oftentimes
for
they
late
don't.
fees.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Little things.
there's
that you
all
have to think
kinds of
about,
things.
yeah.
So seller financing is a great way for a seller to convert equity in a home they're selling to, maybe to downsize, and convert that into, say, maybe a 5% annuity. But the term, you may not be able to have a balloon payment on there. It may need to be a fully amortizing loan over, say, 15, 20, or 25 years. It doesn't have to be 30 years. It can be if you wanted to, but it can also be shorter. But be careful about, you could potentially run afoul of the new restrictive lender laws. And the penalty for running afoul of the lender laws today are forfeiture of all interest that you earned on there, meaning that every payment that is made on that loan would go to principal. So plus your attorney fees for getting,
And
for
sometimes jail
defending
time.
yourself.
Can you imagine a 7-year-old, like, what are you in for? Oh, like,
Selling financing.
Well, here's a kind of a big major thing is, what if the seller really needs all the cash?
Right,
Then they
right.
can't do seller.
Oh, yeah, a lot of times they just don't have it.
If they have a big loan on their house, they can't. I mean, you have to pay the loan.
But but maybe they need all the cash to do the downsize, right? Because if they don't qualify for a loan themselves, they're going to have to pay all cash, right? Retired people on Social Security, maybe they can't qualify for a loan.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Pay all cash.
So it's seller finance is a great thing for a buyer, and again, when you're looking to buy real estate, make sure you ask your agent, and these are things that your agent probably knows, or at least should know and be aware of, and we got to be creative in this market here. And talking about being creative, how are we doing on time?
We got a few minutes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
There were some interesting statistics in listening to an economist speak a couple weeks back, and I thought this was rather interesting. We hear about anecdotally people talking about people who are leaving California in droves, or all moving to Texas for jobs, or Las Vegas, or other places, or people heading up to the Northwest to Seattle or Portland. Well, here's some facts for 2015. The national population growth in the United States was 4%. In California, the population growth was 5%. In San Francisco, the population growth was 7%.
Which is strange because they're not building more in terms of the growth.
Yeah.
Well, there's some growth, but
Do they count homeless?
Yeah.
Maybe they do. So 4% U.S. population growth. San Francisco Bay Area, 7%. On the median personal income, the U.S. median personal income was 2015 $53,000. For California, $61,000, and for San Francisco Bay Area, $78,000.
Which is still low.
Considerably higher than the U.S. So again, these are numbers, and again, these are last year's numbers. So what does that mean for what's going to happen, next year? It doesn't. It's just interesting and noteworthy. But there's not a flight of people leaving. Well, there might be a flight of people leaving California, but there's still a net gain. We're still California as a state, and the Bay Area as a region is still growing.
Well, I mean, and back to why the Bay Area always is the leader in appreciation is because net supply and demand of houses. We're in a no-growth area, which is why it's so beautiful for so long. It's not the New York metro area or LA. It's sprawl. It's like we have really good zoning, and it's a beautiful place to live.
NIMBYs.
Yes, exactly.
Not in my backyard.
Yep.
Exactly.
As they say.
Yeah, I don't see, again, as a lender, I need to know what, where the clouds that are forming on the horizon. And I've listened to two noteworthy economists, a California-based economist and one that's based on the East Coast, and both of them were projecting out beyond 2017 for where they believe the earliest likely recession is going to be. They're calling maybe 2018. That doesn't mean there's going to be a recession in 2018. It just means they don't see anything that would lead them to believe that we're heading into a recession in 2017. And we all know how hard it is to predict what's going to happen a year or two in advance. So it's interesting that two leading economists were claiming that. And both of them, by the way, did not believe we were in a real estate bubble here in the Bay Area and in California. And again, for what we just talked about, population is still increasing, wages are still increasing. Yeah, I know, you listen to the media and it talks about how the middle class is vanishing. Actually, according to these economists, that's not true. The middle class actually is alive and well, but it's just popular politically to kind of go all Donald Trump and talk about how the middle class is vanishing and the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer. Statistically, the numbers don't really bear that out, but it's popular to quote that politically. So.
And back to, how do you know who to listen to? Think of the movie The Big Short. There were a handful of people screaming, this is the way it's going to go down, we're going to see a big bubble, it's going to go down 30-40%, and the general consensus was blah, 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 they're nuts, and it unfortunately did happen.
Very good.
Yeah, it pays to stay read and listen to the people who really make it a point to know these things. And economists. I know. You can quote. You can interview or poll 20 economists, and they're going to give you a range of theories. But there were economists who actually did, in fact, predict what happened to the U.S. economy back in 2007 and 8, and those are the ones I like to listen to because they weren't afraid to cry wolf back then, and those same people are not seeing the same storm clouds. So again, I put a lot of value on that, and again, I think slow growth is better than no growth, and certainly better than negative growth.
It's like inflation. A little inflation is good.
Yes, absolutely.
I definitely don't
And
want
a little
deflation.
appreciation is good, and I like that. And according to Case-Shiller, we're trending down, so we'll see if that continues. I like 8.5 better than 10.5 appreciation, and I like 6.5 better than 8.5 because again, I think it's all about sustainability. We want sustainable real estate market here in the Bay Area and a soft landing on the next cycle because let's face it, there will be another cycle. We just don't know when,
guaranteed.
and we don't know how severe it's going to be. But let's all cross our fingers for a soft landing.
Good. Okay, Mark, give out your information. I know you're still paying over 8% on your fund.
Yeah, so hey, for those of you looking for a place to park some portion of your savings, we are paying a little over 8% through the Pacific Money Fund. It is a mortgage pool fund based right here in California, making loans locally in the Bay Area. Give us a call at 415-883-2150 or visit our fund's website, which is pacificmoneyfund.com for more information.
All right, we're going to have to cut out here. Can you believe that? Okay, here's our thoughts for the day. Babe Ruth said, "It's hard to beat a person who never gives up."
Love it.
And winners, while most are dreaming of success, winners wake up and work hard to achieve it. Good
Love
point. Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free vacations for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown. We're wishing you the best of investing. So long.
Nice.
Good.
We're going to definitely invest with
Did
you.
you ever go back and see if anybody
Mid-year,
actually watched
end of
the
this
videos?
month.
What's it?
You ever
Sometimes
check-
depends.
You ever check the viewership? I haven't done that in forever.
Yeah, it's